Hello, friends of the recently deceased. Welcome to the very last Halloween illustration for this month, featuring our gal Lydia Dietz from one of my favorite Halloween movies, Beetlejuice. When I had set out to do this series at the end of last month, Lydia in her red wedding dress was the first I knew I wanted to illustrate. I had gone through a couple of different ideas before settling on this one. Like, I originally really wanted to include the sandworm into the composition somehow, since I think it's just got a really cool design overall, but in the end, I thought that it might be fun to play around with light and shadow for this piece instead, and I kind of had the idea of this very blue and green background based on the scene in the movie where she is wearing this wedding dress. And for those of you who are interested, I share more concept sketches and show more of the planning process of this piece exclusively on my Patreon page, which I'll have linked in the description down below if you're interested in checking that out. So for this illustration, I decided to mainly use the Rohrer and Klingner colored inks that I had gotten from the High-Cala art box, plus one red acrylic ink from Liquitex. For those of you who have not seen the video, a number of months ago, I had reviewed and demoed the High-Cala art box here on my channel, and I believe in the video I had stated that these inks were an acrylic ink, but some people in the comments had said that that was not the case. So I double-checked the Rohrer and Klingner website. Also, apologies if I'm pronouncing that wrong, I'm sure I am. Website states that the inks are described as pigmented calligraphy ink produced with modern raw materials, namely acrylic resin and highly pigmented colorants. So technically these Rohrer and Klingner inks are a calligraphy ink, but I suppose I had assumed that they would be classified as an acrylic ink as well when I made that video, since their website stated that they contained acrylic resin. In any case, prior to me using this brand, I had a decent amount of experience using acrylic inks by Liquitex and another brand, so I personally find that these Rohrer Klingner calligraphy inks paint and behave in the same way, and I even mix them with the Liquitex inks without any noticeable issues. So sorry for the confusion. I'm not really sure what the major difference is, to be honest, because to my knowledge, Liquitex acrylic inks are also acrylic based with pigments. So anyway, I don't really know what the deal is. In any case, they behave the same way. I mix them together, paint with them together, no issues there. So that's that. Anyways, on to the actual process of this piece. One of the biggest benefits to using waterproof inks is that they are permanent when they dry, which allows for lots of layering. And since I knew I wanted to create a lot of dramatic shadows in this piece, this seemed like the more suitable medium rather than watercolors, since, as you know, watercolors tend to lift if you are a little bit too rigorous when you're laying down layers. The downside to these inks, though, is that they do dry pretty fast, which means you gotta work pretty quickly if you're laying down large washes like I am with this background here. Knowing that they dry fairly quickly, I try to have the colors that I need mixed and ready to go on the palette so that I can switch back and forth between them while the area is still wet if I want that kind of diffused look. And by the way, the liquid that you see in the little bottle that you can kind of see me adding to the inks in the palette is just plain old tap water. I find that it's easier to dilute the colors this way, and it also gives me a little bit more control. So like I had mentioned earlier, what mainly inspired this piece was the color scheme from the film, where in the scene that Lydia and Beetlejuice are about to be married, the background is a very vibrant kind of ultramarine blue, which I found created a really nice contrast against the red dress. And so unfortunately, the final result for the background on my illustration is not quite as vibrant as it is in the film, which I was a little bit bummed about, but if anything, I think that it may have helped Lydia stand out a little more in the illustration. And then for the choice of the kind of yellow-green lighting coming through the window, I had decided to go with these colors as opposed to just a lighter blue, was because I felt like not only does it create kind of a more interesting color scheme overall, but I also felt like the hint of green also kind of makes you think of Beetlejuice himself. And so I thought that would be kind of a fun, subtle reference, since the general vibe that I'm going for with this piece is that Lydia is understandably in a state of distress or panic about having to marry him. Throughout the process of this piece, you can see me layering very diluted washes of red ink to slowly build up the sheer fabric on Lydia's dress. Technically, I am able to do this with watercolors as well, which I have in the past, but I find that you have to be much more careful, whereas with waterproof inks, as soon as it's dry, you can keep layering on top without having to worry about the previous layer lifting or being disturbed. This quality of the medium definitely comes especially handy when I start adding in the cast shadows of the window onto Lydia. The important thing to note about doing this, much like with how I approach the sheer fabric of the dress, you want to make sure that you've mixed a fair amount of water into your paint/ink mixture so that it is very transparent. For these cast shadows, I used a blue which creates a really nice purple shade when glazed on top of the red of the dress. It doesn't show up very well on camera, but I did very lightly sketch out the general shapes of the cast shadows on Lydia with a colored pencil so that I had a guide before I actually started painting. This was a huge help since, like I mentioned earlier, you have to work pretty quickly when filling in large areas with these inks, and so that helped take away the guesswork when I was actually laying down the inks when I was approaching these cast shadows, because these inks are permanent, if I make a mistake or if I put ink in the wrong spot, I'm kind of screwed. I mean, I probably, if I really wanted to, very, very quickly use a paper towel to try and lift some of the ink if it was still wet, to try and rectify any mistakes like I with watercolors, but I find that it dries so quickly and absorbs into the paper so fast that if I were to try to lift with a paper towel, I'm sure that it would still leave some kind of ghosting anyways. So not to try and scare you guys into using acrylic inks, but you do have to be fairly decisive when you are using them. Like many of my illustrations, I do the original sketch and value/color planning digitally on my iPad using Procreate. This helps me make more decisive choices when it comes to the traditional painting portion of the piece, since I have a guide to work from. That being said, it was still mildly terrifying adding this blue shadow across half of her face. Then moving on to adding more color to her face, this is another instance where the waterproof inks really shine. The way that I add in the blush to her cheeks, nose, and the eyeshadow is basically I lay down a blob, I guess, of red ink. Then using a clean wet brush, I sort of drag the edges of that blob of color so that it blends into the existing base layer. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of the only way I know how to describe it. But in any case, this technique is pretty much the same as when I use watercolors, but like I said before, you can scrub and blend much more with waterproof inks than you can with watercolors. And so I find that I'm more willing to layer many more times because I'm not worried about a previous layer underneath being disturbed or lifting or anything like that. I will say though, one of the major downsides to using waterproof inks is that when they dry up in your palette, you are unable to reactivate them and you cannot use them. When I paint with watercolors, if I want to paint the piece over the course of a couple of days, I can do that without having to remix the colors on my paint palette, since I can just reactivate the paints with water. With these inks, however, you either have to paint the piece from start to finish in one sitting, which is basically what I did for this piece, or you will have to be willing to clean off the palette and start a fresh new one. Which honestly wouldn't have been a huge deal for me with this piece, since the color mixtures I made for this illustration were pretty straightforward, but I did want to use up as much of the ink as I could, since I really do want to avoid wasting any art supplies if I can help it. And as you can see, there was quite a lot of ink in my palette still. Which, by the way, I highly recommend using a ceramic palette, since I find that the ink is much more difficult to remove and sometimes can stain plastic palettes. And the way that I clean off my ceramic palettes from waterproof inks or acrylic gouache is I will fill up the wells with water, and then I'll just let it sit for a few hours or overnight. And then I find that the ink/paint will either just like naturally lift away from the surface, or it is just easier to scrape off. So like I had mentioned at the beginning of the video, Beetlejuice is now one of my favorite Halloween movies, but funny enough, even though the movie is technically a little older than me, I actually never got around to watching it until I was an adult. One of the things that I was immediately taken aback by was the fact that, to me anyway, young Alec Baldwin looks a lot like Ryan Gosling, which I really just cannot unsee. Not that it's a bad thing, obviously, both are very handsome, but that's just always what I think of now when I watch this movie. The other thing that really surprised me when I first watched this movie was the fact that Beetlejuice is played by Michael Keaton. To me, this freaking blew my mind because I grew up religiously watching those Tim Burton live action Batman films. And so to me, Michael Keaton was always Batman. And so to see him as Beetlejuice, which is obviously so far from the character of Bruce Wayne, it just boggled my brain. But also, it really just goes to show how impressive and transformative he is as an actor. Also, side note, Batman Returns might be one of my favorite movies ever. Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman is truly legendary. And speaking of iconic ladies, I just want to take a moment to express my love and appreciation for Winona Ryder, who of course plays Lydia Deetz. I saw someone post on Instagram a kind of like compilation of some of Winona Ryder's characters that she's played over her career, and the text that accompanied it said something along the lines of "Halloween belongs to her," and it couldn't be more true. Well, along with Helena Bonham Carter, who of course is also a Halloween queen. But yeah, I think Winona Ryder is amazing, and one of my favorites, which I really want to make fan art for again in the future, is her role as Veronica in the movie Heathers. If you enjoy dark, humored teen dramas, I definitely recommend checking out Heathers if you haven't already. It's super 80s fashion, and many hilarious one-liners are fantastic, and I also feel like it's kind of the predecessor to Mean Girls in some ways, but a little bit darker. Also, I remember definitely having a little bit of a crush on Christian Slater as JD. I don't know, man. Leather jackets. There's something about it. And on that note, that brings us to the end of the process of this illustration. I actually had so much fun painting this, and I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. It was definitely an experiment, but I definitely think I will approach kind of these fun light and shadow pieces again in the future. So before we go, I recently got a couple of pieces of mail in my P.O. box, and I thought that it'd be fun to open it live with you guys so that you could come along this fun little unboxing with me. So I was expecting this one from Kat. She posted it on her Instagram that she had done some artwork for me, which was very, very sweet. So, oh my gosh, it's so cute. This is a portrait of a very, very flattering portrait of me with my roommate's cat, Salem, on my shoulder. Super cute. I have never looked more glamorous in my whole life. Thank you so much, Kat. Oh my gosh. This card is so cute. Look at that. That's amazing. I'm having difficulties here. Wow, that is adorable. Thank you so much, Kat. This is so beautiful. So the next letter I got here, look how cute this envelope is. Very colorful. Oh, cute. We've got some kind of bullet journaling stickers here. Beautiful cherry blossom theme. And some really, really gorgeous cherry blossom themed washi tape. Super pretty. Aw, thank you so much, Alyssa. That is super sweet of you. So also your handwriting is incredible. Oh my gosh. For those of you guys who don't actually know, I actually do bullet journal. Very non-decorative bullet journaling, I might say. But now I have an excuse to make it all pretty. So thank you so much, Alyssa. This is really, really sweet of you. And then moving on to our last box here. So this decorated box is so pretty. Look at this wax sealed stamp and all the kind of witchy stickers. Like, you know me so well. This is amazing. Okay. Oh, this is so cute. Aw, thank you so much, Barbara. Oh, this is, I love all these witchy vibes. I'm really excited to open up this. So first off, beautiful wrapping. This is so nice. Oh my God. Oh my gosh. Oh, these are so cute. Oh my goodness. So they're like wooden pins. Oh my gosh, these are amazing. The custom washi tape here. So cute with the little mail envelopes on it. Oh my goodness, so beautiful. Look at this metallic, very cool. Oh my goodness. Oh wow, so many sticker sheets. Oh my God, that is so gorgeous. Look at these designs. I absolutely love that. I love that they kind of have different moods, like a little different mood boards, I guess. These delivery ones are adorable. Oh, I love the pastel witchy ones. Oh my goodness. Barbara, you spoiled me. This is so nice. Oh yeah, it's a little like sticky notepad. Oh my goodness, this is so perfect. If you've ever ordered from my shop, you'll know that I like to include a little handwritten thank you sticky note in all of my orders. So some of you lucky ducks will probably receive a thank you note from me using Barbara's beautifully designed note card. Oh my goodness. Ah, you guys are so sweet. Thank you so much for sending me your products, and you're so generous and so sweet. I'm honestly like so blown away and humbled by your generosity. Like, you really don't have to send me stuff, by the way. All right, and that brings us to the end of Halloween month. I hope that you guys had as much fun with all of these Halloween illustrations as I did. As you guys know, Halloween, October is my favorite time of the year, and so it is a little bittersweet that it's come to an end, but I hope you guys had a blast playing kind of the guessing game with me, and I hope that maybe I'll do it again next year, because there are so many characters that I didn't get around to doing, and so I feel like, you know, it was a fun series. And for those of you who are wondering, I will have prints available for purchase for all of the illustrations that I did this month, and my shop will be linked in the description down below. So yeah, thank you so much for coming along this ride with me. Next week we will be moving on from Halloween, and I'm sure, you know, for the percentage of you who are not interested in Halloween, you're probably excited for that. So yeah, thank you so much for all your support. I've had so much fun interacting with you guys about all of the different characters, and yeah, I'll see you next week. Bye! fairly well to this very fun Halloween look.